Ambulance is a Michael Bay film on a mid-tier budget. This isn't going to be a AAA film budget like, say, the Transformers movies or a Marvel movie. No, this is a mid-budget. You know, like maybe 50 to 100 million, a mid-tier budget type of movie. And there's primarily practical effects, there's some CG to enhance some of the effects, but overall this is a Michael Bay experience. If you know who Michael Bay is, this is what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a Michael Bay type of film. And in my opinion, Michael Bay's strongest films are the ones where he's not intruding upon fan favorite franchises such as the Transformers and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Pearl Harbor. But when he's not trudging upon those, when he's doing, say, Pain and Gain, when he's doing things like that, he does it really good. Bad Boys, he does it really good. Ambulance is in that type of vein. In fact, after having watched Ambulance, I have all but been convinced that Michael Bay should direct a Fast and Furious movie, because he has that charm about him that the Fast and Furious movies brought out, at least the earlier ones did. Michael Bay is a fan of cars, he's a fan of action, he's a fan of pretty things, you know what I mean. And those are all three things that the Fast and Furious movies were known for, at least up until the fifth one. So, I honestly think he should direct a Fast and Furious movie. Ambulance here, though, is a film that will probably remind you a fair bit of the 90s movie Speed, starring Keanu Reeves. Speed is probably one of the greatest 90s action movies ever made. It is a high-octane thriller of non-stop tension, and the writing, the acting, the cinematography, the camera, all of it was phenomenal. Speed is a summer movie treat, especially if you're a fan of action movies. Ambulance brings that era of filmmaking back. Ambulance brings out that high-octane, action-paction thriller type of adrenaline that Speed had, that the early Fast and Furious movies had. Ambulance stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, and Eiza Gonzalez. I think that's her name. Eiza. All three are fantastic. It's a small cast, all things considered. You're spending the bulk of the movie around maybe 3 to 5 characters. You have the two brothers here, they're adopted brothers. Jake Gyllenhaal plays the more criminal side character who was born into a crime family. His father's one of the most notorious types of criminals out there, a bank robber type of character. Yahya Abdul-Mateen plays the character of Will, who is the adopted child of this crime lord legend. But he wanted to turn his life around. He's the good brother. He's the good son. He went into the army and he became a soldier. He comes home and he finds that his Veterans Affairs isn't really nice to him. He has a wife and child, and his wife is stricken with some sort of illness. I believe it was said to be cancerous. There is treatment for this cancerous substance within his wife's body, but it involves experimental procedures, and his Veterans Affairs insurance won't cover it. And he doesn't exactly make a lot of money, so he can't really save his wife's life. And she just brought in a small child into the world. And you can imagine the type of desperation Will must be feeling right now when he realizes that he cannot afford to save his wife's life. It's sad, and it harkens to a lot of real-life types of problems we have in the industries today, and the types of solutions that we need to start working on before we get to these types of desperation. Now, this is extreme hyperbolic and desperation. You're not going to see this ever happening in the real world, but it makes you empathetic to his plight. It makes you very empathetic to his character. Michael Bay doesn't spend too much time working on character, but the way he does it, the very little that he does, is expert. It's expert tier writing. You don't need to spend too much time with them. You have a few lines of dialogue telling you about these characters, and then they show you who they are. There's no tell. It's all show. You see it in their actions. You see it in their body language. You see it in their decisions that they're making in split, high-octane seconds. That you see the personalities of these characters coming to life in those very split seconds. He is the bad brother. He is the good brother. But the bad brother loves his good brother, and the good brother loves his bad brother. They are inseparable, and they will do anything for each other. And even as bad as Jake Gyllenhaal's character gets, he will do anything for his good brother. He will do anything for his brother. And I felt that connection between the two characters. I felt that connection, and I felt that charisma, their interaction, the bonding. They do work really well together, these two characters, these two actors. And the lady here, she plays an EMT, ambulance, obviously, ambulance. These two are bank robbers, and there's a bank heist that goes wrong, and they have to get out of there real quick. Their whole team gets taken out except for these two, and they find that there's an ambulance speeding out of there, and they jump into the ambulance, and they meet Isa Gonzalez. Now, there's not too much I want to spoil for you, because I want you to see this film. This is probably my favorite Michael Bay movie ever that he's ever done. This is probably my favorite, and I really want people to support movies like this, because you don't get too many of these anymore. You really don't. These are the types of movies that you saw in the 90s. These are the types of high-octane action movies that are not necessarily full of expert tier writing, but it's filled with a lot of what you needed to feel thrilled, to feel entertained. This is a movie designed primarily with entertainment in mind, and it works on almost every single front. I was severely entertained, thoroughly entertained with Ambulance. I loved Speed growing up. I loved Gone in 60 Seconds growing up, and both of those movies were referenced in this movie, and it was fantastic. They reference a lot of older Michael Bay movies, like Bad Boys, Pain and Gain. They reference a lot of those, and they were very good. They're very good movies. They were very excellent films, and this is above those two, in my opinion. And a bulk of my praise comes from the actors, from the characters. They do so much with what they're given that they really sell these characters to you, the viewer. It's a Michael Bayham movie. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of explosions, there's a lot of car chases, there's a lot of crashes, there's a lot of fast cars, there's a lot of really excellent, nice, beautiful sports cars. It feels like a Fast and Furious movie meets Speed, meets Gone. It's excellent. If you've ever watched The Great Train Robbery with Sean Connery, or if you ever read the book by Michael, it's a very excellent story, and I see a lot of similarities. I see a lot of nods, a lot of homages to the great heist films of the past. It's really good. It's a heist gone wrong, but you get the feeling that Jake Gyllenhaal's character is trying to emulate that scoundrel type of character who's a lifelong criminal, but he has a heart of gold when it comes to his brother, and it's really nice. It's a really nice film. I'll read the synopsis on the back, but I don't want to spoil too much other than that. In this action thriller directed by Michael Bay, veteran Will Sharp, desperate for money, turns to his adopted brother Danny for help. A career criminal, Danny instead offers him a huge score. But when their heist goes awry, the desperate brothers hijack an ambulance with a wounded cop and an EMT on board. Will and Danny must evade a citywide law enforcement response, keep their hostages alive, and somehow try not to kill each other, all while executing the most insane escape LA has ever seen. There's a lot of stuff in here that would never work realistically. There is a high-octane police chase, open surgery with the EMT and Will here. They perform a sort of medical procedure that would never work in reality, but despite that suspension of disbelief, that despite that disbelief, it's suspended because of how well you feel that tension. You're not even in that disbelief section. You're all suspending it and watching it. It's an excellent time. It's very imaginative, despite all of the things that were against this man. Michael Bay excels in these types of 90s action, high-octane thrillers, and I really want to see more films like these come out. I really do. I want to see more of these mid-tier budgets. They don't have to be so risky. They don't have to have 200 to 300 million poured into it. You don't need to have $1 billion ad campaign. You just need about 40 to 80 million, and you need to make a good mid-tier action movie. And I promise you, if they're good, they're gonna do really well. This is definitely Michael Bay's best film, in my opinion, and it demands your attention.